Do you like skinheads? I don't, but a good enough skinhead character can tell a hell of a story. That's why American History X was such a fire movie. Not because Edward Norton is a legit Nazi, but because he did a great job portraying a complex skinhead character. Jon Moxley and them are not a racist stable. They're a stable inspired by racism. This is an important distinction because the Whitepool Kombat Club is a half-ass gimmick, and that's why they haven't really connected yet. You can't be a kinda racist top heel stable and expect strong negative reactions from fans. At best, the gimmick will fly over fans' heads and Mox will get babyface reactions because he's a star, and at worst, they'll be confused and uncomfortable. Playing a truly rotten and despicable character takes commitment, pinpoint performances, and a perfectly executed story. These are areas where Jon Moxley and the Whitepool Kombat Club are failing in AEW despite being a main event stable as a white supremacist answer to the Bloodline. Moxley turned on his longtime confidant Bryan Danielson, and then they bullied Darby Allin out of his world title shot. Tony Khan loves week-to-week booking because he's a lazy booker, especially during the NFL season, and plans changed because of the rise of the Whitepool Kombat Club, or as our racist cousin Jerry calls them, the family reunion. Subscribe in Swahili. The Moxley militia staged their own insurrection of the AEW main event during an election year. If a white supremacy adjacent storyline wasn't edgy enough, the big angle to kick off Mox's feud with Bryan was Moxley suffocating the American Dragon with a plastic bag. Weeks later, they attacked the Black Stable Private Party in Commander. I wonder why. Mox's abrupt return and a series of awkward promos led to the man becoming the #1 contender for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. And if there's a heaven for fictional Nazis, somewhere up there, Fritz von Erich is smiling. Claudio's leaning into this gimmick heavy by calling himself the White Knight. The White Knight of the what? The White Knight of the what, Claudio with a K? Listen, I love the ambition of Jon Moxley and AEW trying to create a white supremacy gimmick based on a skinhead movie. No matter what evil corner of society pro wrestling tries to exploit, you will never, ever see me try to cancel somebody for artistic expression, especially if I know they're just trying to get heat by playing a character. But if it's ass trash like the Ku Klux Kombat Club, I'm gonna have bars for it. Motherfuckers were making fun of Jon Moxley for wearing a gas mask in 2018. Then cut to 2024 when he's one robe away from wearing a Klan's mask. Because even though Dean Clanbros, Ku Klux Claudio and them have made it to the main event, this gimmick is confusing fans and burying AEW by once again pointing attention to all their shortcomings. Let's back up a little. Jon Moxley returned to AEW on the August 28th broadcast of AEW Dynamite. His head was shaved, but Mox still had more hair on his head than the amount of people in the building that night in Champaign, Illinois. Moxley had reinvented himself by teasing a hostile takeover, and the most famous words from his comeback promo were,
"This is not your company anymore."
The combination of a weak gimmick and low attendance numbers in AEW made reactions to Moxley's promo quieter than Dave LaGreca interviewing Tony Khan.
I'm really excited about that I've been dreaming about for so many years and never ever thought could be possible. We saw him come here, wrestle the world champion Kenny Omega, 30-minute draw at the first Grand Slam. The Grand Slam World Championship Tournament, a great match in the main event of the second Grand Slam. The 3-year anniversary of Bryan Danielson arriving for his first match in AEW, which is the most compelling thing that I've seen on wrestling television. I'm going to watch everything right now. And the betrayal from Jon Moxley, who's been basically sent for 2.5 years of Bryan Danielson's time here.
I thought the same thing.
People immediately began speculating that Shane McMahon may be part of this. But for those of you into cult Australian movies starring Russell Crowe, that line came from the movie Romper, Stomper, an independent film that tells the story of the downfall of a neo-Nazi group in Melbourne.
This is not your country.
In Romper, Stomper, Russell Crowe and Daniel Pollock portrayed skinheads. In AEW, Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli are shaved bald, and this is far from a coincidence. This is why I call them a skinhead stable, because if a stable borrows lines from a skinhead movie and features multiple members with their heads shaved like the main characters in said film, what else am I supposed to assume? Especially if their first feud is with Private Party. I actually watched Romper Stomper after learning Mox was inspired by it, so I could better understand his gimmick. Solid movie, but given how good Romper Stomper was, the Whitepool Kombat Club feels cheap and corny by comparison. It was like watching Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, then going to watch Shakespeare in the Park immediately after. I'm a handsome black wrestling supernova, so the Temu.com Romper Stomper stable has opened the floodgates to some great material for me. If AEW's main event was a French cuisine, it would be a charcuterie board with all them salted crackers. Nothing like the charcuterie boards that WWE sends me every Kwanzaa, because I only eat cracker-free charcuterie. Anybody who knows how Moxley's bald reboot was inspired, but is somehow confused as to why I'm making it about race, just refuses to acknowledge the red elephant in the room. And that's perfectly fine. There are plenty of bland, white wrestling channels that are terrified of race who want nothing to do with the stone cold fact that Jon Moxley's latest gimmick was inspired by a skinhead movie. It's like if The Shield was a SWAT team funded by the '94 crime bill. Just look at them. They call themselves a Blackpool Kombat Club, but there's nothing black about them. They're more like the whites only pool combat club. Looking like if boiled eggs bidded on slaves. What else? Like a white bowling ball if pins were the gays. What else? More like a cue ball that targeted eights. What else? Or an ivory balloon with tattoos on its face. The streets tell me JD from New York, 2'6", tried to join this bunch of Blackpool bigots, but backed out of getting skinhead tattoos at the last second because cousin Jerry is afraid of needles. And his pediatrician. It's the holiday season, and our racist cousin Jerry is like a garden gnome with 2 eye holes cut in the hood. Click clack. JD reminds me of a Keebler elf cracker, with emphasis on the elf and the cracker, because all 3 are the same size. Click clack. Don't worry, these aren't racist jokes, they're jokes inspired by racism. JD is a proud New Yorker. His favorite team is the Jets, and his favorite mascot is an eagle, but he sucks at those New York Times puzzles because the only clue he's ever been able to figure out is burn a cross. It's all good, JD is just playing a character, I'm told. And one of his best characters is miniature podcaster with one black friend. Sometimes he goes super method and is all like, "Can I stand on a stool and touch your hair?" I'm just serious. JD's best friend is blacked out from a Proud Boys tailgate. I don't know if you can tell by my accent, but I'm from the suburbs. When I was a kid, my parents went out of town and I was babysat by my white neighbors. Shout to Greg and Jackie. While reviewing my 3rd grade math homework, Greg and Jackie got in a heated argument over whether 2 times 2 equaled 6 or 8. This is exactly what the Whitefold versus JD beef reminds me of. Maybe that's why I can't take the Whitepool Kombat Club seriously, because I learned at an early age that there's no such thing as a superior race, and if there was, it damn sure ain't the whites. By the way, JD versus Whitefold is like the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar beef, but if the diss tracks were performed over bluegrass beats that never charted. And instead of the Super Bowl halftime show, the winner got to open the pre-show of the Lowly Country Music Awards. Justice for Beyonce. Jon Moxley's gringo gimmick has all the ambition of a black woman trying to be president, but all the charisma of WrestleNomics trying to be interesting. Because Pollock and Thurston are basically the grand wizards of tryptophan the way they make a ninja fall asleep. They're like the white knights of Night Night. Who knows, maybe Shane McMahon will team up with Moxley down the line and add a spark as shaved McMahon. As cheesy as this stable is, I like the energy of AEW going more edgy with their heel gimmicks. WWE has done a great job making heels more 3-dimensional, like the Bloodline and Drew McIntyre, who always tells the truth but goes about it self-righteously. Still, due to sponsors and being a global brand, there are always going to be lines WWE can't cross. As an alternative to WWE, AEW is a fit for a more adult audience, so they have free range to go a little further with their heels. And they should. Even if these stables fall flat on their skinhead faces like the Whitepool Kombat Club, failure is just an ingredient of success, and it shouldn't discourage AEW from developing more realistic heel characters. Real talk, I actually thought MJF was onto something when he was doing that American Champion gimmick, and he did a good job getting heat all over the world as a xenophobic heel. Max went all the way and he didn't get canceled because he played his part to perfection. I've always advocated for more political characters and gimmicks that exploit the darkest corners of divisiveness within our society. This is how AEW can truly exist as an alternative to WWE, but only if they go all the way with their skinhead stable and don't mamby-pamby around what everybody knows the Whitepool Kombat Club really is. Seriously, you have my blessing to fully explore the white supremacy that's baked into this stable like the chocolate and diarrhea baked into that pie that many fed Hilly in the Help. There should be no question as to whom these skinheads are, why they feel they are supreme, and why they just happen to be beating up black people every week. Lean into that shit, Timid Tony. I can take it. Give me a promo from Mox talking about, I don't like Private Party. They've been grilling at the same cookout for 5 years now. The only parties we go to are all white parties like Tony Khan, except the guest list at our all white parties don't have any. Nobody will fully engage with the stable like the Whitepool Kombat Club if it doesn't go full bore with all this white supremacy. If AEW goes all the way with its skinhead flavored gimmick, then it's more likely that the other Air Jordan drops and we get the Hurt Business debuting as a pro-black stable, like the Nation of Domination. On night 1, I need Bobby Lashley to beat Will Ospreay in 10 seconds and rename that international title the African American title. Wishful thinking, I know, because AEW does not care about black people, but a black boy can dream. Hear more about the rise of white supremacy in AEW here. How far will AEW go with its skinhead stable? Tell me in the comments!